Hello, good evening. My name is Dr. Trude Ufondu of Snowspirations Global Health Solutions. Thank you so much and welcome to this evening's episode of YouTube live stream. Today, we're going to look at two important concepts. We're going to look at menopause and we're going to look at the impact of menopause on libido. So it's going to be very, very interesting. It's going to last about 30 minutes. So we're going to look at the connection between libido and menopause. And we're actually going to start. So please sit back, listen to my presentation. Then afterwards, we're going to talk. So menopause is actually the time that marks the end of your cycle. Remember that every woman in her reproductive cycle actually has that particular time frame when she can actually have her whole family started. So your cycle is something you should be conversant with. Your cycle is normal if it's every 21 days to 35 days. So if you bleed every 21 days, that's your normal. If you bleed every 28 days, that's your normal. If you bleed every 35 days, that's your normal. Now, when you go into menopause, you've come to the end of your cycle. So you will no longer bleed. You no longer have eggs. Your potentials of becoming pregnant naturally, it's no longer there because when you don't have eggs, then you can't have an egg that the sperm will fertilize. Now, menopause is normally diagnosed when you haven't had your period for 12 months. So one of the diagnostic criteria for menopause is what? Lack of period, which we call amenorrhea, for a period of 12 months. Normally, some people might have their menopause early, before 40. If you have your menopause before 40, it's classified as premature ovarian failure or early menopause. Now, some people can have it in their 40s. Some can have it in their 50s. In America, the average age for menopause is 51 years. So depending on your familial history, depending on when your own mom had her own menopause, the possibility you're going to have your own menopause about that time is very high. So if you're in America, if you're hovering around 50 or 51, possibility you've gone into menopause, it's high. Now, when you go into menopause, it's a biological process. It's a natural process that every woman will go through. So it's not something you should be sad about, but it's something you need to be conversant with the presentation. When you go into menopause, you can still be a mom, but you need donor eggs and you need IVF. So two things. You need to go through in vitro fertilization and you also need donor eggs. Why do you need donor eggs? Because you no longer have eggs. So if you're listening to me this evening, one of the things you have to figure out if you haven't had your bleeding for 12 months is to confirm your status about menopause. Some women might be pre-menopause. It means you are getting ready. And some women might be perimenopause. It means you're just right there. Or some women can be post-menopause. It means you've actually had 12 months of lack of bleeding. Then subsequently, everything continued the same. Now, when we talk about libido, libido simply means your sexual instincts, your erotic desire, your pleasure. So libido is also known as sex drive. Your libido can vary from a woman to a woman, and it can also be influenced by a couple of factors. Now, when you have reduction in your libido, it can happen at any age, but it's mostly commoner the older you get. So this evening, we're going to connect the dot between menopause and libido. Can menopause affect your libido? I want you to pay attention to me. So remember, as you're going through menopause, you might begin to notice that your libido is also coming down. So if you're tending towards 50, you notice a couple of changes in your body. You're no longer interested in anything related to sex, which probably prior to now, you normally derive joy engaging in it. Some women may start experiencing this frequently, while some will not. So in some women, when they are getting older, their libido can actually go up. But the common presentation is decreased libido. So depending on how your body is wired, depending on how healthy you are, depending on how fit you are, depending on your lifestyle, you can actually experience high libido when you're tending towards menopause. But the commoner one is what? Low libido. Now, not all women will go through this decreased libido, though it's very common. In most cases, when you have low libido during your menopause, it's normally due to fluctuation in the level of your hormone. One particular hormone we're interested in is estrogen. The estrogen level in a woman fluctuates as you're getting older. So it's expected that when you're tending towards 35, the level of your estrogen will start coming down. When your estrogen level is reducing, there are a couple of changes that will happen in your body. Part of those changes will lead to decrease in your libido. Now, menopause can have some negative effect in your libido in so many ways. So we're going to look at a couple of points. So what's the impact of menopause? You see, when you have this decreased level of hormones, especially the estrogen, it will lead to vaginal dryness. And when it leads to vaginal dryness, you feel tighter. And when this happens, you begin to feel pain. So let me repeat again. When your estrogen level is reduced based on the fact you're tending towards menopause, which is one of the presentation, you begin to experience dry vagina, not because you have any problem, but because naturally the normal reaction from the estrogen you have is reduced because estrogen is no longer at the level it used to be. Now, when you feel dry, you begin to feel a little bit tighter. And if you are so detached from sex itself, you begin to experience painful sex. Now, menopause can have a couple of symptoms, which can also make sex less interesting. So, a couple of presentation of menopause. Most women that are menopausal might present with depression. So depression is a clinical diagnosis. It's not something you say, oh, I'm depressed today, and tomorrow you're no longer depressed. It's a diagnosis a doctor needs to make. So it's not unusual to notice that women in menopause will be depressed. Some women will notice mood swings. In the morning, you wake up, you're so happy, you're so upbeat. Towards evening, you begin to have changes in your mood. Now, anybody can be moody. Most people will go through mood swings. But if you notice a pattern, everything that used to make you happy is no longer making you happy. For some reason, the people around you actually know your mood is not really what it used to be. And if you're tending towards menopause, it's possible that this is one of the presentation. Some women will begin to gain weight. Suddenly, in as much as you're doing everything right, not to gain weight, you notice you're gaining weight. So weight gain can also be a presentation of menopause. But the next point I'm going to mention is also commoner. Hot flushes. So what do I mean by hot flushes? Inside your vaginal area, your pelvic region, it feels like you're sitting on, hot charcoal, spring of hot, feeling coming in, making you so uncomfortable. You actually feel like you're in a very, very, hot, place. You don't just feel comfortable. Hot flushes is a very common presentation in women that have menopausal symptoms. Now, you might notice you're easily irritable. And when you have all this combination of symptoms, you're depressed, your mood is not there, you're gaining weight, you're irritable, you have hot flushes. Will sex be on your mind? Absolutely no. When you have hot flushes, some women will also notice night sweat. And when you have all this night sweat, definitely you're going to be so tired. Because when you're having hot flushes and you're having night sweats, when you don't sleep, you don't get enough rest. When you don't get enough rest, definitely sex is not going to be on your mind. Remembering that you are supposed to be participating in this depending on what you want. So there are a couple of other, physical changes during menopause that can also affect your libido. Like I mentioned, the weight gain, the discomfort in your body, they will all work together to make you not to have interest. So some people might not actually have organic reason why they might not engage in sex, but a couple of all this will switch you from a happy lady to a very unhappy lady. Nobody wants to have any of those symptoms. Now, how can menopause affect libido? So during menopause, your testosterone, which ordinarily is the sex hormone, both for males and females, though as a woman, you should have a regulated level of testosterone. When your testosterone level is higher than your estrogen level, you begin to show signs of androgens. Androgens are the male pattern hormones. So some women that have hormone imbalance, if we check their testosterone, if it's really very high compared to the normal range, you might begin to exhibit signs like you're a man. So during menopause, your testosterone level and your estrogen level is both reduced. They are decreased. And when this happens, it makes you very difficult to get aroused. Knowing fully well that testosterone is the hormone that will kick you into that mode. So testosterone is what controls everybody's sexual libido. So imagine when it's very low. Some women might even have it at 0. It's low, your estrogen is low. Estrogen that is supposed to make you, have your fluid, not to be dry, will be down. Testosterone will be down. So it's more like a double combination between testosterone and estrogen, which ordinarily should help you to be in the mood. When you have this combination, definitely you're going to have vaginal dryness, like I mentioned. Definitely it's going to present with low libido. So low levels of estrogen will also reduce the blood supply to the vagina. When you have reduced blood supply to the vagina, it can also lead to irritations and less lubrication. So what makes your vagina to be healthy? It's blood supply. What makes the penis to be healthy is blood supply. So when you have low level of estrogen in your blood, there will be drop in the supply of blood to the vagina, which over time can have its own detrimental effect. Now, also during menopause, the walls of your vagina will start thinning down. Over time, if you pay attention to your body, you will notice visible changes in the vaginal wall. This is called vaginal atrophy. When you begin to lose the musculature, the thinning, the wall, the way it's originally meant. If you pay attention to your body, if your body is a very good friend, you will notice this. This condition is called atrophy. This condition will further make sex to be painful. So vaginal dryness and atrophy will combine to make sex very, very uncomfortable. Now, what are the ways you can diagnose menopause? I've already mentioned, when you haven't had your bleeding for 12 consecutive months, that's a classical sign that you might have likely gone into menopause. Most times, we don't really worry about doing tests for menopause. But for some reasons, in certain circumstances, like a lady that is not up to 40, and she's presenting with, symptoms of menopause, we definitely do some blood tests. There are 2 important blood tests we're going to check: FSH and your estrogen level. So when we check your FSH, because estrogen and FSH have a kind of a love-hate relationship. When your estrogen level is high, your FSH level is controlled. But once the estrogen level is reduced, the signal in the brain will tell the brain to produce more FSH. So one of the ways of diagnosing menopause is to notice high level of FSH in your blood and low level of estrogen. So when we tie absence of bleeding for 12 months, when we tie hot flushes, when we tie vaginal dryness and moodiness, and when we check your blood level and your FSH is very high and your estrogen is low, there is also another hormone we are going to check, but that one is also related to your ovarian reserve when we are talking about your AMH. But right now, we're talking about only FSH and estrogen. Also, we keep an eye on your thyroid stimulating hormone, because in some women that have underactive thyroid, that's hypothyroidism. So if your thyroid hormones are not within the normal range, they can also mimic signs of menopause. And because women that have hypothyroidism can actually add weight, can actually be moody, can actually be depressed, we need to separate both things separately and make sure that this is menopause and this is hypothyroidism. Now, over time, in some situations, you can actually get some test strips over the counter to check your FSH level. But it's not advised to do this because the results can be misleading, because your FSH level can fluctuate depending on the time in your cycle where you find yourself. So it's always good to go to your doctor. Very, very important. Now, your lifestyle and remedies can help improve the symptoms and signs of menopause. So if you're currently menopausal and you're having all these symptoms, the question is, what am I going to do? So what are the lifestyle and home remedies you can use to improve your experience to still get good quality life if you're having menopausal signs? Number 1, you have to deal with the hot flushes. So watch what you dress in. You can't be in a very hot place. Like Florida is very, very hot. So you can't be in Florida and you're wearing suit when you're having hot flushes. You have to avoid things that will elicit those hot flushes. So have a cold glass of water, or you go somewhere cooler. So find the coolest place in your home and be there. Then make mental note of things that trigger your hot flushes. Some women, when they drink their hot beverages, or they take spicy food, or they take coffee, or they have alcohol, or they are stressed or hot weather, when you have all this, they might be your trigger. So you can place your mind and know when you have all these triggers so you can avoid them. Now, decrease of vaginal discomfort. Okay, so this is where your lubricants can come in. If you're still believing God to be a mother, remember there is no always, there is no never in medical practice. Make sure that your lubricants are sperm friendly. So not the lubricants that contain spermicide. So be on the lookout for Precedes or baby dance. If you have this feeling of discomfort, dryness, hot flushes, using any of this can boost your experience, especially if you're going to engage in sexual practice. Now, the more you engage in sexual practice in your menopause, the more your body is going to get used to it. So women that engage more in sex during menopause will feel that their experience will be better. So staying sexually active can help your vaginal discomfort by increasing the blood flow. So anytime you're engaging in sexual practice, there is increase in the blood that goes to the vagina, and this can also help. Now you need to get enough sleep. When you get enough sleep, you can also do better. So avoid your caffeine. Don't take it nearer to the period you're going to go to sleep, because when you don't sleep, sleep is a very big enemy when it comes to sexual intercourse. So avoid taking things that will keep you up in the night. Don't drink too much alcohol, or come on, stop your alcohol. We've had enough alcohol. Now, exercise is huge. Exercise regularly. Find what you love doing and engage in it. Getting regular exercise on most days will actually protect your heart, will actually likely prevent you from developing diabetes or osteoporosis, because when your estrogen level is low, estrogen level ordinarily helps in making sure that your bones are strong. But when your estrogen level is low, as a woman, you are prone to having what we call pathologic fractures. So suddenly, we notice that your bone is cracked somewhere, not because you fell. So when you engage in exercise, it's also going to increase the density in your bone. So it helps to make sure you don't develop what we call osteoporosis, which I'm not going to bother you today. So exercise during the day, and don't do it before you go to bed, because it can keep you up. So exercise during the day is very good. If hot flushes disturb your sleep, you may need to find a way to manage it better. So find a very comfortable place you can always go and relax. Now, practice relaxation. Relaxation is very important if you are in menopause right now. So practice deep breathing, paced breathing, guided imagery, massage, progressive muscle relaxation. So don't go to a noisy place. Don't go to a very noisy room. Don't go to a very bright light room. Just find a very comfortable, dim light room. Relax, meditate, be in the now. Find things that make you happy. When you practice relaxation techniques, it also helps. Now you need to know how to practice your Kegel exercise. Kegel exercise is very good to strengthen your pelvic floor muscles. Your pelvic floor muscles are the muscles in your whole vaginal, the anal area. So there's a particular exercise you can engage in. It will help to improve the pelvic floor muscles. Women that have strong pelvic floor muscles can actually have very good experience. Okay, so when you do this, you are also going to prevent what we call urinary incontinence or anal incontinence. So incontinence means you're laughing, suddenly you notice you're leaking urine when you don't want to pee. So when you improve the strength of your pelvic floor muscles through the practice of Kegel exercise, you will fare better. Now, definitely you need to eat balanced diet. You can't avoid this. So include fruits, vegetables, and whole grains in your food. Limit your saturated fats. Limit your oils and sugar. So you have to eat healthy. At 50, around your menopause, you're no longer eating food because it's very sweet. You are eating to live, not living to eat. So ask your provider if you have a need to be giving calcium or vitamin D supplement to help you meet your daily requirements. And generally, over the counter, you can get your age-specific multivitamin for women. If you still want to be a mother, you get your prenatal. But if you're done being a mother, then go and get age-specific multivitamin. So they normally write the age on the back of the multivitamin. So get a couple of them, especially we are looking at your calcium and your vitamin D. Definitely you don't have any business smoking. Smoking will make it worse. So avoid smoking. Bottom line, if you are experiencing loss of libido and you are currently menopausal, please try and increase your sexual drive by increasing your lifestyle, change what you need to change, practice everything I've told you, then try and give yourself room for education. So many people don't know. Learn, practice, look for aids, find things that will help you to get there. If all the remedies I've mentioned didn't work, then please ring your doctor and go in so your doctor can consult you and give you better overview. Okay, so thank you so much. Now we're going to allow ourselves interact. So I'm going to take care of questions on the floor and we get things started. So please ask your questions. Okay, let's go. What can one do to relieve hot flushes without drugs? Like I mentioned, find a very cool place in your home. So if you have an AC, you can go to a very quiet place. You can run you can run a cold bath, depending on the temperature in your home, right? If you're in a very cold place, definitely you need to make it a little bit lukewarm. So you can run your bath, you can be there, you can relax, you can meditate, you can do a couple of things at the same time. But avoid those things that elicit those hot flushes. So avoid your coffee, avoid your alcohol, avoid your spicy food, because they are triggers. When they trigger you, you don't want to get there. I'm not a woman, but from my medical experience, it's something they really, really cry about. Some women will just come crying, they're having hot flushes. Some of them will not even know how to express it. So avoid all those triggers that normally elicit hot flushes. Does menopause cause moodiness and depression? Yes. Now, moodiness, which is mood swings, and depression might be a sign of menopause. It doesn't mean that all women that have it will present with that, but majority will present with mood swings and depression. So yes, that might be a sign you might have gone into menopause. Okay? All right. Do we have any other question? Please keep asking your questions and we keep providing you feedbacks. This is a very important topic for everybody. So if you're experiencing this, you can get help. You can try a couple of the tips I gave you. Then if it fails, call your doctor, go for your doctor's appointment, and your doctor will help you. There might be some need to give you some hormone replacement therapy. So some women might receive estrogen replacement therapy, but it's not something you do by yourself. You see your doctor, and your doctor will decide if you're a candidate for that. Is vaginal atrophy a real thing? So real. You wouldn't even begin to imagine. How can I give an illustration about vaginal atrophy? Let me try. Let me use my mouse. So you see this? You see how thick? You see how thick the wall of this mouse is, right? Very thick. Now in vaginal atrophy, you begin to lose all the muscles on the wall. So over time, this place will start eroding. It will start thinning down. It will start thinning down. When it's thinning down, it's going to lead to dryness. When it's leading to dryness, you're going to have a very bad experience. So it means the muscles, you are gradually losing the muscles you're supposed to use to keep your vagina healthy. Now, another example of atrophy. If you notice any part of your body you are not exercising, you begin to look at those muscles, it will look like you're losing them. So let's use, for example, your biceps. If you're someone that goes to the gym, you will have opposite of atrophy, which is hypertrophy. So you notice that your muscles are so firm. When you begin to have reduction in your muscles, they are flaccid, they are reduced. It's called atrophy. That's the same thing that happens in the vagina when you have this. So if you pay attention to your vagina as a woman, you will notice this change as you're getting older. Okay? Very, very good question. Can a woman in menopause still have a chance at motherhood? 100%. 100%. But what you need to deal with is your reality. So please, if you're listening to me this evening, you're a mother. By default, what you need to do is to deal with your reality. So what are your realities? You no longer have eggs. So you're no longer going to ovulate. You're no longer going to bleed. But if God willing, every other parameter in your body is within the normal range. So the endometrium is still there. The thickness is good. You can become a mother through the process of IVF with a donor egg. Now, let me tell you this, my sister. There are so many women that are still younger that still resort to donor eggs. There are so many things we can't change. So if you find yourself with the partner you want, the partner you love, and probably you guys are hovering around 50. For the woman, the man doesn't really have any issue when it comes to the age. Go and use your eggs as soon as possible. If you no longer have eggs, by the time we check your ovarian reserve, use your donor eggs. The earlier you do this, the better. Do you know why? If you don't act on time, you might even go for the IVF and you might not react properly. IVF is not automated. So it's not every woman that goes through IVF that will have good outcome. There are some women that will do every single thing right and the IVF will still fail. So you have a better chance the younger you are, even when you're going for donor eggs. Because if you're menopausal, there are some changes in your body that might not support pregnancy. So there are ways you can become a mother through donor egg and IVF, or through donor egg and surrogacy. And you can also adopt. So 3 options. Donor egg with your own, your body. That means you go for donor egg. We put the baby inside of you. Number 1. Number 2, you don't do anything about carrying the baby. We look for another woman, and that woman with your partner's sperm will carry you guys' baby, or you go for adoption. So 3 options of becoming a mother if you're menopausal. Now, 3 of them are the same thing. There is no difference. The only difference we create is in our mind. So yes, go for it. The earlier you go for it, the better, okay? All right. Do Kegel exercises work in fights against vaginal atrophy? 100%. It works. Now, remember what I told you about my biceps, right? When I exercise, when I constantly put my muscles in tension, they will bounce back. So instead of atrophying, they will hypertrophy. So the opposite of atrophy is hypertrophy. So yes, when you form the habit of doing your Kegel exercise, you're going to strengthen the pelvic floor muscles. And by the time you're growing muscles, if you notice, when you're growing muscles, you begin to you begin to have, contours, toning and what have you. So yes, go and start practicing your pelvic floor muscles. It helps improve even your libido, even your experience, okay? How can a woman who's had hysterectomy know sheets in menopause? Now, remember, this is a very, very smart question from Kenneth. So here's the deal. Let's actually look at it logically. When you lose your womb, the process of surgically removing your womb is what is called hysterectomy. So ectomy means removing something. Hystero reminds you of your womb. So when you go for hysterectomy might be partial hysterectomy or radical hysterectomy. So in radical hysterectomy, we're going to remove everything. We're going to remove your ovaries. We're going to remove your womb. But if we are only removing your womb in hysterectomy, now we need to be logical, right? Now, when we remove your womb, you still have your ovaries. You still probably have your tubes. So depending on your age, you are still able to still be a mother. So because we can use your eggs, we can still do a couple of things outside your body and you can still be a mother. But there is no longer womb through which blood can collect and pass through the vagina. Okay, so at that stage, at the stage of removing your womb, the definition of menopause is going to shift for you. So at that stage, our focus will be on the ovaries. So if we didn't do what we call oophorectomy, removing the ovaries, right? We are gonna still check your ovarian reserve because what we've removed in hysterectomy is just your womb. Okay? So by default, a woman that has hysterectomy, you're not gonna become pregnant, and you can still be a mother. Do you understand that? So yes, it's kind of changed. So the post is gonna shift for a woman that has had hysterectomy because in hysterectomy, there is no womb. But you might still have your eggs, you might still have your tubes, and once you have your eggs, once your ovaries are there, once you have ovaries, then you're still fertile. So the criteria for knowing if you went into menopause is not just the bleeding part, because the bleeding part is because of changes. So when a woman is bleeding, what's the implication? You are bleeding because there was failure of pregnancy to happen. Though not in all situations. Some women might have an ovulatory cycle. So that means you are bleeding, but you didn't ovulate. Okay? Very, very, very lovely technical question by Kenneth. I love that. Okay. Can menopause cause osteoporosis? So this is what you need to know. One of the things that happen in menopause is the reduction in your estrogen. Now, menopause by itself might not. It might be in medical practice, I want you to, pay attention to cause and effect. So we might have risk factors. It doesn't mean that risk factor is actually causing something. So like in hypertension, when you smoke, when you have high BMI, and when you have a lot of stress, there might be a risk factor for you to develop hypertension. It doesn't mean that the fact you're smoking causes hypertension. That's not true. For now, we don't know what leads to hypertension. So in the same vein, what we know is the fact that when you go into menopause, your estrogen level will be low. When your estrogen level is low and you're not engaging in things that will increase your bone density, then you might likely be predisposed to having osteoporosis. So menopause by default might not cause osteoporosis, but by default, the changes in your body might predispose you and make you someone that will be at risk of developing osteoporosis. Okay? Very, very technical question from my crew. You guys rock. Okay? Let's see. Okay. Does a woman need pap test and mammogram after menopause? Definitely. Remember, when you've gone into menopause, by default, your womb is still there. Your cervix is still there. Your everything is still intact. Now, when we are doing our pap test, what are we checking? Pap smear. We are collecting sample from the cervix to make sure there are no precancerous changes in the cervix. So by default, you're actually supposed to be going for your pap smear the older you get, because you still need to keep an eye on your cervix. The essence of checking your cervix for pap smear is to make sure we identify changes in your cervix so that if it's precancerous, we begin to attack it early. The problem in cancer is the time of treatment. Once we diagnose cancer on time, we can go for a radical approach. So we can go for chemotherapy, we can go for surgery, and we can go for radiotherapy. So that means we give you the chemotherapy drugs, we use rays, and we remove the tissues themselves. So women that might have cervical cancer, if they go for regular pap smear, we can notice when things happen early, then we can go for what we call cone biopsy and make sure we prevent the cancer from proceeding. Now, for your mammogram, definitely you go for your mammogram, okay? Depending on your age, every woman is encouraged to go for their mammogram. So when you're going for your mammogram, it's the same thing we're trying to do. We're trying to do preventive route so that if we notice any changes in your breast, we can actually do what we call double mastectomy. And in double mastectomy, we can also do what we call radical double mastectomy. Your mammogram and your pap test, it's all a preventative process. Okay? Lovely, lovely questions. I love them. Okay, so thank you so much. Now, Ebenezer, please share the topic for tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday. So what we're going to do, we are coming with a lot of changes, which will improve the community. So, but for the rest of this week, we are going to still run our YouTube live broadcast every day. But coming from next week, we are going to announce a couple of changes in our channel. But thank you so much for coming. There are so many other helpful, important videos in this channel. This channel has thousands of videos that can change your life. So make out time to subscribe. Type in a particular topic of interest. Go there and listen to them, understand them, ask your questions, share the channel, show up every day, and you will learn something. Okay, so thank you so much for coming this evening. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye for now. God bless.